Rony was a founding faculty from last year when he set up the institute, and he did have a wonderful business plan session then also. Rony is a senior partner with BDC Consulting. He joined BDC in 2003 and became a partner in 2004, and he is currently senior partner with BDC Consulting. He brings over 30 years of experience in business coaching, sales, marketing, and general management. He's a graduate of Politecnico of Milan, Italy, where he received a PhD degree in electronics engineering in 1971. And he does a wonderful job of consulting all types of industries now. Please help me welcome Rony Israel.
Thank you, Rony. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Would you like me to? I'll move on. Okay. First of all, thank you very much. Would you mind, ladies, if I move on?
Yeah, go ahead, accept the...
Okay.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much, and thank you for taking the time to come and listen to me. First of all, I'm sorry about my voice. I've been fighting a cold for a few weeks, but hopefully I'm not going to cough for too long. I've been an entrepreneur myself, so if you have any questions, not only related to a business plan, but how the business plan can help you as an entrepreneur, please feel free. I've run about 7 companies myself, created some, turned around others, worked for very large multinationals as well. So I got a little bit of experience in how you manage structured companies and how to manage turnarounds as well. So in all situations, the most important part that I had come to realize after resisting for quite some time was the creation of a business plan. And the reason why the business plan for me was always difficult, because I've never been good in school in writing essays and looking at a blank piece of paper. So finally I realized that at the end of the day, it was really my roadmap, it was really my design, and was really what my goal and vision that I had for my business that I needed to document for myself. And as soon as I made that kind of shift, it became much, much easier for me to start developing a business plan. So the other part that is that you will see on my first slide is entrepreneurs are not born, they are actually made. So when I went to school, I never thought that I would ever really be an entrepreneur myself. I thought that I will follow in the footsteps of my father. He worked for a large company. He was going to work every day. He brought food on the table, and I thought that that was the way the world of business works. So how an entrepreneur develops is really when you start realizing that every day you make decisions and every day you take risks. And sometimes you're taking risks, and very often when you work for other people, sometimes they filter your ideas, sometimes they use them, sometimes they modify them. So at the one point I decided, I said, you know what, why not take the risk for myself? And therefore you develop the confidence. So confidence is really at the foundation of an entrepreneur. If you're afraid, you're not ready yet for entrepreneurship. But once you start, it becomes natural for you to run your business day in and day out. So why bother creating a business plan? So first of all, you are not creating a business plan for somebody. It is actually your definition, your own definition of your business. It is one way for you to validate your concept, to validate your ideas. So you put them down on paper in a structured manner to try to understand if what you have thought about doing has merit. And it gives you also an opportunity to identify very quickly certain gaps in your thinking. Because one thing that has to be said probably up front, an entrepreneur is not a business. An entrepreneur happens to be one or two links in a chain that makes a business. So you don't have all the skills required to be able to run successful business. So you need to understand what skills you bring to the business, and therefore surround yourself with the other skills that you are missing to be able to succeed in business. The surrounding yourself with other skills can come in multiple forms. You can hire the people if you have the ability to pay for them. You can get people to give you advice for free if you can. You can buy the advice if necessary, or you can ask questions and you can do research and you can talk to people that indirectly or directly will provide you some of the knowledge that you do not have. So just to give you an example of what I mean. When I started my business, I was employee 1 of 1. And I didn't have a lot of money. I had $10,000 when I started. It was an education company. And my goal was to develop an application software that will help high school students to learn on their own instead of being bored listening to a teacher in a classroom. So I didn't have a lot of money to pay or to buy skills. But when I did do my plan and I put it in place, I realized that I was missing a couple of things. Number one, I did not have very good programming skills. So therefore I went around and I started looking at who might have that skills and how I could attract that person to come and work with me. And because I didn't have money to pay for that person, I looked at that person to say, would you be interested, can you buy my vision? And the person was saying to me, he says, that's interesting, what is your vision? So I could explain it by voice, but it was very, very powerful and compelling story when I brought out my plan and I said, here is what I intend to do. And therefore he said, can I take it away and I'll get back to you in a week. And that's how those kind of discussions evolved and how that became important to me. The next part, I didn't know what I was actually missing. So I did some research about how you run a business. And the best way for me to do it was to look at the organizational chart of a multinational. And I saw names like president, vice president of operation, vice president of this and that and the other. I stopped at that level and I designed a label for each one of them. I bought baseball caps and put them on a table, and I put those labels on these caps. And why it became enlightening to me, because now every time I was entering into a discussion with other person that I was trying to recruit to come and join my vision, or I was talking to a potential client, or I was talking to a potential investor, then I was choosing the cap that had that label on it. So when I was talking to a person that I was trying to attract, I was putting my human resources hat on. And I was therefore learning how a human resource person talks to other people. When I was talking to my banker, I was now the president, and I had to learn about what they're looking for, and that's what I'm trying to share with you today. So it became quite evident when I did this little exercise that I did not have all the skills required around the table. So what I did do is I started putting words as acting. So the ones that I did not feel comfortable with, I said I am an acting vice president of administration, as an example. And the reason why I did that is because now, as the business evolves and as you become more successful and you can attract people and you get customers and you get investments, you can now invest money in people. And which one to invest in first became very evident to me now, because I looked at which one are acting, and that's the one I will invest in. The one where I felt I had enough skill set to get by, I kept and I delayed the hiring in those. So as a result, that's the reason why you write a business plan. To understand the nature of your business, understand your strengths and weaknesses as an entrepreneur first, and the more honest you are with yourself and your skills, the better you're going to be on. The next part, as you can see on the slide, it looks at the business opportunity. Because once you detail the business opportunity, the next thing you want to know, am I the only one in that market? Are there other competitors in that market? And therefore, it forces you to do some research and some comparison, and therefore it gives you more confidence that you can actually succeed, because if others have been there and have succeeded, there is no reason why you cannot succeed. It's only a matter of how you structure yourself and how you sell your value proposition. The element that I have described to you was on achieving the goals. Because very important, you have to map out what are your goals. And the goals is not, I want to be very rich, and I want to be very rich very soon. I was lucky enough that I had to retire 3 times until my wife kept on kicking me out of the kitchen. So I finally, in 2003, I came out of retirement and went to work for the bank and became a consultant. But the reality is, wanting to be rich is not really a business goal. It's an outcome of your success. So what you want to do, and when you set your goals, what are the milestones that you need to achieve, and by when, in order for you to feel confident that you are making progress. That is the most important part. If you feel that you're making progress, your confidence is still there, and you're going to progress. If you do not set for yourself achievable goals, then you will be very demoralized. And if you get demoralized, it's not going to be very good for the outcome of the business. So it's very important to do baby steps, small goals, achievable goals, and try to monitor them as you go. And that's what I have done in my plan. The most important part is actually the second last bullet, is the risks involved. Because when you start, you say, I know what I need, and even having done it multiple times like myself, I had to go through that step all the time. Because the risks are, some risks are risks that you can control. Like for instance, if I need investments, I know I need to go and get money into the business. If I need a skill set, I know I can find that skill set, and one way or the other I can attract that skill set. But there are many elements that are out of your control. Elements that are out of your control could be government regulations. Another element out of control is the economic upturns and downturns. You do not dictate how the inflation goes up or down. You do not dictate what taxes are there. It doesn't dictate what the import and export laws are. Depending on your business, there are significant risk factors which are out of your control. So what you try to do at that point in your plan is to define what are the risks. The one that you can control, you know how to mitigate them. But the one that you cannot control, this is where you have to spend your time on saying, if that occurs, how can I mitigate that risk? And the reason why that part is so important is because you can have the best business plan, the best ideas, the most successful implementation plan, and you're going to go to an investor, and the investor will say, this is great, you want my money, but what if tomorrow you cannot export your products? I'm going to be losing my money. So you want to be prepared to be able to have an answer for potential objections that most likely are going to be coming on how you're going to mitigate the risks. The anticipated returns, that is very important, because even if you can be waiting for a long time for returns, the people who are going to help you succeed, either employees or associates or partners or investors, they want to know what is the expected return. And I remember having a conversation with Alex, as an example, who came to see me after the last session and said, I have this plan, and I looked at the plan and said, this is an exciting plan, but what are the returns? And when he shared with me his return, I said, well, maybe I should take my money and put it in the bank and get 5% instead of risking it and getting probably 2%. So you have to understand the returns, not only to excite and entice a potential investor, but to see who will be competing for the same money. So if there is an event or an opportunity at a lesser risk than yours to generate the same similar returns, the money is going to go there. So you want to know what type of return you can anticipate for the kind of risk that you're asking your investors or yourself you're taking. And please interrupt me anytime. Yes, go ahead.
And we were talking about returns. Generally speaking, what is considered a good return to showcase on a business plan that you ideally would like to?
Like, to give you an example, in the company that I mentioned on the education as an example, my returns for the first 3 years was negative. There would be no return. But the way when I put it and I calculated and I saw that, I said, how am I going to ever attract somebody? So what I did is I looked at the valuation of my company instead. So I said, if for 3 years I'm not going to be generating returns, but I'm creating value in the company. So the company in 3 years will be worth, from zero today, it will be worth $5 million. So if you are invested and you have 20% of the shares of my company, then your investment is now worth $1 million. So not everybody will be accepting that, but certain investors are looking at the exit strategy that we're going to be talking about as their major way to hit a home run, as opposed to the dividends that they can get on a yearly basis. So you look at the returns and you look at the valuation of the company, so there are different ways of looking at returns. Thank you for asking the question. Any other questions? Sorry? Yes, Fabian?
When you are a consulting,
Yes.
when you consulting,
Yeah.
then how do you value your company?
Okay. The valuation of a business is quite simple. Private businesses are evaluated at half the price of a similar company publicly traded, because they don't have the same market flexibility. So one way of doing it, you look at the publicly traded company that does similar things that you do. You look at their market cap, you look at their revenue, you know the premium, you divide that premium by 2, and you apply it to yours. So that's one way. The other way, which is the one I have always looked at personally, is how long a buyer of my business will take to get his money back, to break even. So if, as an example, I'm generating $100,000 of net earnings at the end, and I sell my business for $300,000, it will take that buyer 3 years. Usually, 3 years is what you will be looking as a buyer to break even. But the reality is, having been a buyer of businesses myself, I look at that just to negotiate the best price for me as a buyer. But the reality, I'm looking also at the expense lines to see which are the expenses that, if I am the owner of that business, will not occur. And that's called synergizing. So if I already have a business, I can move that business in my same location, so I'm saving on real estate. I can use the same accountant, so I'm saving on accounting fees. I can use the same salespeople, so I'm saving on salespeople. And I try, when I'm as a buyer, with the synergy, to get my money back within a year and a half. So that's what you look at. So when you look at the business plan, as I mentioned, therefore, it is yours. So don't look or say, I have now to develop one because my bank wants one, or my landlord has asked for one. You develop it for you first, and then you share it with others. So it is your roadmap. The goals are really your goals. When we talk about organizing tools, these tools are really the human resources that you need, the exercise that I've done with my CAPS. The financial side is really the financial outcome. So the expenses that you will need to incur in order for you to get the business, either off the ground if it's a new venture, or grow if it is in its early stage, or acquire and merge with others if you are in a more mature stage. The advice is related to the skill set that you do not have. So you have to think about how you are going to be completing your management team, if you want to call it this way, from a skills perspective. So, so an example is I gave you earlier. In another company, I didn't really have a lot of, I had the skill set, but didn't have enough of the managerial experience. So I created a board of advisors. And the board of advisors are people like myself that have had successes in their lives and are trying to really do something and return the favor to the community that helped them. So you will be sitting for no money and no compensation on a board where the entrepreneur will share his or her goals and the difficulties and challenges that are being encountered, and you will be advising them either on how to go and leveraging the context that over the years the board of advisor members have acquired in the community. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, is it common not to compensate a board of advisors?
Yes.
So you don't.
Board advisors are not compensated.
Okay.
Board of directors sometimes are. In publicly traded companies, they are always compensated, but not in private companies.
Okay, good, thank you.
The other part on the board of advisors, sometimes what I was doing, because I was not compensating them, you always feel a little guilty. So I was picking spots, like let's have our board of advisor meeting in Collingwood or Blue Mountain. So we have the meeting in the morning, we go skiing in the afternoon or something like this. So you can, based on your means, you can give them an incentive, if you want. And it's really a recognition of a thank you for your advice. The secure investment, that part of investment is, I put it there because you have to understand investments can come from multiple sources. So you say, it can come from your savings, it can come from family and friends, it can come from banks, it can come from individuals, it can come from organizations and institutions like venture capital. So how do you know which one to go on and which one to contact first? So when I do this, and the reason why I put the word secure is control. Is how much control do I have on the fate and the destiny of my own business? And therefore I rank them. I rank those sources of funding based on the level of control that I have. I will have 100% control of all my decisions if it's my money. Nobody will ask me any questions, and I'm going to make all the decisions. The next level is family and friends. I still have 100% control, but it would be embarrassing sometimes at a cocktail party or birthday party and say, by the way, remember you asked me for $10,000, how is it doing? Well, so somehow you want to have an answer. So most often, family and friends do not expect to see that money back. Actually, they're going to be very surprised if they ever see it back. So you don't worry about that part. But what you do, you keep them informed. So at least every now and then, you send them an email, you give them a call. Thank you very much. By the way, I wanted to let you know, here's what I've done, and here's what it is. When you get to the banks, now you are still in control of your business, but you now have a boss. So they don't own any part of your business, but they will be asking you for a lot of information. So it's a very patient lender, so it's good to go after that to the banks, because the banks will give you the money, but they will say, every month I want to see your financial statements. Every month I want to see your forecast. Every month I want to see the level of inventory that you have. Every month I want to know, what are you planning to sell next month? And next month they say, you told me that you were selling $100,000 of these widgets, you only sold 80, why? All of a sudden you have a boss. So make sure that you are upfront, you are consistent in your communication with the banker, and then the banker will be off your back. After that, it becomes now more, you start to lose real control. So if you get to the individuals, which we refer to them as angels, usually these individuals have a skill set. So when they will be looking at your business, they're going to be looking more importantly, is there a position and is there a skill gap that I actually can come into? Because they're looking for a job as well. So they invest in about 5 companies, and they will spend 1 day in each one of them. So all of a sudden, now you can no longer make decisions on your own. That person will say, all that is my money that you're spending now. Let's see. So you have to become a little bit more diplomatic in your approach.
That's even if you still have the majority of the equity?
It doesn't matter how
Exactly.
majority it is.
Right,
Because when you sign the agreement where they give you the money, even if you give them 1%, they will say, I have veto power. So that will protect themselves quite well. And the next one is the venture capital, which is now, they will own a good chunk of your company, and they will actually dictate how the business is run. And sometimes you don't know what they are actually doing behind your back. In one case, as an example, we started a company which became quite successful, and in today's environment, everybody's using it. It was a web company, a web conferencing company, and as it started to grow and develop, and we had clients. We had basically as clients every single company from the New York Stock Exchange. One day I got a tap on my back. It was the venture capitalist. Says, by the way, Rony, I would like you tomorrow to have lunch with me because I would like to introduce you to someone. So you thought it was good. So I meet with this individual, and that individual happens to be the president of Alcatel. And he says, Rony, I'm very pleased and proud of whatever you folks have accomplished. By the way, please sign here, we're buying your company. My company is not for sale. And my venture capitalist said, it's sold. Not that it's not for sale, it's sold. So you have some time to know that you are going to be losing control. So you have to be a little bit, even though the money was great, because as I said, I retired after that for the second time. But at the end of the day, just to give you an idea, this company just got resold to Westcom for $1.5 billion. So it's quite something. So you have to keep good relationship. You have to keep ongoing contact and try to understand what is happening that you are not being told. Because at the end of the day, angel investors and bank and venture capitalists are there to get a return on the money because they want the return. And they only will crystallize this return either if you go public, or if the company is sold, or if the company is merged. So one of these 3 outcomes for sure is going to happen. So you need to be prepared, and you can be okay with that. How am I doing with time? I'm okay.
I don't have third speaker, please carry on.
Okay, so this is the most important slide that you will remember. The elements of a business plan. These are the steps and elements that you need to consider. It's your table of content, but it's actually the structure of your plan. So for each one of those, you're going to develop the content for it. What I should tell you, 2 things at this point. A business plan is not a romance. It's not a book. It's actually maximum 10 to 15 pages. So don't think that you have to write a lot. The next thing is, the executive summary is the first page, is the most important one, but it is the last one you will ever write. So you will write everything else, you will research and develop everything else, and the executive summary is the last one you do. Because, as it says in its own name, it's a summary. And the summary is a page to a page and a half. Don't do it 3, 4, 5 pages, because it's not going to be ready. Why limit the business plan to 10 to 15 pages, and why the summary to 1 to 1.5 pages? Anyone that you're going to be presenting your business plan to for getting money, to get investors, or to satisfy the questions of family members or others, every one of them will come with a filter in their heads. And the filter is the industry in which you are operating. The other filter is how much money you have invested in the business. The third filter is, do you have the track record and do you have the skill set, or are you surrounded by the right skill set that gives me comfort that this venture can succeed? Those are the 3 major filters. So as you can imagine, therefore, a banker will receive about probably 5 to 10 business plans a week. So that makes about 40 a month. And they have targets to provide loans to 2 or 3 of them. So there are 40 business plans that they, in theory, should read to select the 3 that they're going to finance. So you can imagine they're not going to read them. So they will go directly to your executive summary, and they will be looking right away for which industry you're in. And if you are in an industry which is not the industry of choice for that institution, your business plan is put aside. Assuming that now you're in the industry of that institution is looking for, they're going to be looking at the next stuff. The next one is, how much have you invested? If you have invested none, they're going to put it aside as well, because they want skin in the game. Bankers are not investors. Bankers are lenders. They are lending the money, your money and my money, they are lending to others. So they want to make sure that you have the ability to repay. So if you don't put any money in, they consider that an investment. Too high risk, banks shy away. So, yep.
I have to say though, that if you put your own money in, then you don't have the house that they want as security. You know, like often, it's contradictory. They want you to put all your money, a lot of your money in, or they want to see you committed, then they ask you to securitize the loan with assets that are remaining in the bank.
Yeah, absolutely. But there are certain banks and certain institutions that will not ask you for that as an example.
For example, which bank?
BDC, for instance, will not take any of personal assets as a security. They will give you.
That's not my experience with the BDC. That hasn't been my experience with the BDC.
BDC does not take your house as a.
They want security, they want you to secure.
No. It's called unsecured loans. There are, depend on the amounts. It depends on your credit history. It depends on multiple things. There are the Royal Bank as an example. When I was dealing with, I had my loans unsecured. Limited, $100,000, but it was a lot of money for me. Yes.
So how about the opportunity cost or the sweat equity?
How is it, sorry, how is the opportunity cost?
Or the sweat equity that you put in?
Yeah. Usually they will look at your equity and they will probably go, certain institution will go up to 3 or 4 times. So you put 10, you can expect 30 to 40,000. So
I was going to make a comment. Getting a loan without a personal guarantee is extremely difficult, if not unheard of. even with BDC, just in my personal experience. So.
The BDC by law cannot take personal guarantees.
But I spoke to the BDC, and afterwards I can give you the.
But I'll tell you what they do, and that maybe that's where the confusion is. They will ask you for your personal assets. The next thing they will ask you to sign as a guarantor, and they will ask you for your personal guarantee. The personal guarantee is a promissory note. It is not a lien on your house.
I was told by the BDC person I dealt with that, not that I would ever intend to not pay it back, but worst case, I asked them the difference between the BDC and going to the Scotia Bank. The difference is the Scotia Bank would foreclose on the apartment, the BDC would put a loan on the apartment.
It cannot.
I can tell you who I spoke with later.
Yeah, sure. You tell me or call me.
Okay, fine.
Because the BDC cannot put any lien because it doesn't have access to your assets. The only way for the BDC to get to that level, it has, go ahead.
Sorry. No, please,
What it has to do, it has to send you a demand letter. Once the demand is not responded to, then they have to go to court, and the judge has to hear the reasoning on both sides, and the judge can appoint a receiver of the court that will go in after your assets. So it's the court that goes after your assets.
Oh, so it can happen though. What you're saying is it does happen. I'm sorry.
It
Well,
could, the courts can do it, not the BDC.
Yeah, just a comment and a question. I mean, I really hear your concern. I think when you're out in the market as an entrepreneur and you're looking for sources of funding, there's all, and I would tie that back to the risks that you had mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Really, what is the regulatory, like in terms of when you say the BDC can or can't, there has to be some act in law that determines what they can and can't do. So I think when there's a misunderstanding around what someone in staff had said, there has to be some kind of solid piece of document you can go to refer to.
It's on the website.
That would be one. But is it federally or provincially?
It's federally regulated.
Excellent, right. So those would be the where you
Actually, the regulation of the BC comes directly from the parliament. So, so keep in mind that business structure, because that's the structure that all parties involved in your business will be looking for.
I'm sorry, business structure, you mean whether you're incorporated or, is that what you're talking about, the business structure?
The business structure, it means how the business plan should be structured when presented. So when you go to a bank, any bank, they would be expecting to see that structure.
Right, quick question. You said when they're going to look at the executive summary, they're going to look at the specific field. Let's
They're
say,
going to be looking at different sections.
yeah, well, let's say if you present a, I don't know, retail business, right? So where we can find this list of the businesses which, let's say, BDC is looking for? Like, let's say I'm, well, to make sure that I'm going to get accepted for the loan.
You just ask, because it changes every
Oh, okay.
changes.
So this is
So you call, so as an example, what we know, for instance, is restaurants are not very welcome by a lot of banks. But certain banks will be looking at financing some restaurants, as an example, if they happen to become, in their view, potential franchises. So it depends on your business. The best way to do is when you contact an account manager at a bank, you ask, you say, listen, I'm in the technology business, is it a business that you're interested in? And they will say yes, or they will say, let me pass you on to my colleague. So as an example, again, the Royal Bank, when I was dealing with them, being in technology, they were always sending me to a group which is called KBI, Knowledge-Based Industries, which were specialized in understanding companies that do not have physical assets like technology companies.
Thanks a lot.
When I was in education, as an example, CIBC was my bank, and they were extremely knowledgeable about the educational sector. When I was in retail, my bank was the Bank of Montreal, because they have a lot of experience in retail.
Because I know it takes lots of time, just an effort, just to prepare
Yeah.
all these business plans, and you're just wasting time.
You're not
If you
wasting
know in
time.
advance the business, no.
You're
if you know-
never wasting time because you're doing it for yourself first.
I'm talking about, like, let's say if I'm applying for the credit, let's say to BDC
Yes.
or CIBC, doesn't matter. And if it's gonna take like 2 months, and they're
No.
gonna say, well, this is not interesting for us, like, well,
No, it doesn't take 2 months. It takes a phone conversation.
okay.
And most banks will, within a week, will tell you if they can finance you, and if they cannot, they will tell you the reasons and what you need to do. So, on the business description, really it's about your business. And as you can see, it's about writing the industry in which you are, the products that you're going to be developing, and trying to make it compelling. So it's really your business proposal, and what makes it, what are the unique selling points. So the market, this is the part that you will have to spend a lot of time. This is the one that you need to demonstrate that you have done your research. So you can have the best idea, but you must spend time in researching your market. Try to understand the trends in the market. Try to understand who are the players in the market. Try to understand what pricing and what business propositions do they have. How do they sell their product and services? And how you compare to them. And position yourself in a compelling manner so you can be differentiated. The good news is, in a market that already has competitors, that means that you're going to have to spend less money and less time convincing your customers about what you do. Because they already know, because your competitors have already made an investment in trying to condition and create awareness in the market. But you need to be different than your competitors in order for you to succeed. And differentiation can come from service, come from timeliness, comes from quality, comes from building a relationship with your clients.
Sorry, what's PES? PDC?
This is political. Okay, the SWOT is known as strength, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats. And PES is really political, economical, social, and technology. So it is really more to do with the environment in which you operate as opposed to the strengths and weaknesses of your business. So one is business related and the other one is environmental market driven. Most entrepreneurs and most businessmen will do a SWOT analysis, but they will not compare themselves in the environment in which they operate, in the demographics that they're trying to attract.
And what would be a political, if you're doing, let's say, like a medical device, political would be
The regulatory, yes.
whether the economy is going up and down, social, whether or not, as a country, we believe in private medicine and technologies without people delivery method, whether or not you can automate.
You couldn't say that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I always look at you because there is a hand behind you.
Oh, and then it's,
So I always think it's your hand sticking out.
the head has two heads.
So I don't have it. Okay. The third element is understand your competition. And more importantly, what I used to do is I used to put all the elements and features and functions and benefits of products and similar products, and then put across my top 3 competitors, including myself, and then start putting X's to see where I am matching or where I'm lacking. And wherever I'm lacking, I'm looking at it and say, is it something that I have to focus on trying to develop a strength in it, or I can just justify it and rationalize it and say, why not? So it's not that exercise you have to have access on everything. It's only for you to demonstrate that you know where you're positioned.
For invisible competition, what would you classify as that? Like competition to come or?
No. Invisible competition is it's very easy for you. So let's say for me, developing an education a learning management system for me was to Google and look at all the other learning management systems. An invisible one is the customers of these learning management systems are knowledgeable enough that they could enter that market.
Okay.
So it's one level removed from the immediate competitor. So example, so what I was looking there for is saying, okay, how easy is to enter the market I'm entering, as an example. So if there is no barrier to entry or a very limited barrier to entry, the invisible competition can pop up everywhere. So an investor, as a result, will not be very attracted by this because anybody can jump in, and therefore chances of success can become more limited. That's what I mean. So the human resources is, as I said, it's a filter. So make sure that your management team is identified. And the reason why I say profiles is because if you have track record or you have a background that demonstrates expertise in the role and the responsibility that you have in that business, it's going to be a very strong, very powerful selling point. Whatever you don't have, consider a board of advisors, consider getting the advice. The other part is the ownership, because at every time the bankers, investors will want to know who owns the business and in what proportion. So sometimes, in order for me to attract my developers, an example, I give him 10% of the business. So when the bank came, they said, okay, I had my profile and I had his profile. So everybody was excited. When they came to the structure, and I said, I own 90%, my developer owns 10, they were starting asking other questions. Can I see the shareholder agreement? I forgot about making one. I just wrote a letter saying, you own 10% of the business. So, and the reason is because I want to know if there are veto power, if there are decision-making power, if there is a shotgun clause. So they want to know now what is the relationship between shareholders. So making sure that you have that structure. And the organization chart, even if I was a company of one, I had my organization chart with a lot of boxes with my name in it as acting. So they were quite excited. They says, why are you acting? I said, because I don't have that skill. So how are you completing that skill? So I'm glad you asked the question. I have a board of advisors. Or I have my contact or my brother or my cousin or something. So organization charts demonstrate that you have thought in a structured manner on how your company is going to evolve.
Sorry, may I ask you a question about your organization model?
Yes.
When you refer to, obviously wearing a lot of hats and positioning as acting, and then at some point something has to trigger your decision making to say, I'm in a growth spurt, I need to hire in.
Yes.
Can you give us a couple of anecdotes of when that point was? Because I think for a lot of us, starting something, we're going to be on the same trajectory.
Yes. Number one, when you are in a growth stage, it's sometimes difficult to know if you have reached a new plateau. First of all, growth in any of my businesses and any of your businesses will not be just a straight line. It's going to be probably like a jigsaw. But what is important is you're going to grow, then it's going to stabilize maybe, then it's going to go down, then it's going to go up again, and then it's going to do these kind of things. What you need to try to understand is by analyzing the revenue that you have generated, try to understand if that revenue is recurring revenue or is revenue which is dependent on one transaction that may have happened that year or that month or that week. If it is a one-time transaction, then you will take it out in your calculation and assessment of your own business in order for you to assess at which level of growth you have reached. Once you know where that level of growth that you have reached, then you're going to do your analysis and say, now, what do I need to do? Because whatever financing you had brought you to that level. So now you need to decide, to get to my next level, what do I need? How much more money? Do I need maybe more line of credit? I may need more capital injections. I may need more equipment. I may need more people. So depending on that assessment. But more important, the most important part is to know which level you have reached, which becomes a sustainable level. One closing comment on human resources. Remember, a business doesn't run on its own. A business is run by people. So the people are very important in any business. And never forget that alone you can never run a business. So you need people, and you need the additional talent of people to complement yours to make it a success. Therefore, always recognize and try to recognize the achievements of the people who have helped you achieve your targets and your goals. It is always easier to retain people than hire new people. So always think about that. Though, excuse me.
But you always are being asked why you don't contract out everything. That's the other thing I find interesting is as you start talking to potential lenders or potential investors, they seem to feel as if you should always be outsourcing.
No. The reason why they're asking you about the outsourcing is for a different reason. Companies should never run at 100% capacity. Because if you run at 100% capacity, as I mentioned in my opening statements, there are outside factors that are outside your control that will impact positively or negatively your company. So if you're operating at 100% and you happen to have a recession like we had, all of a sudden you are not selling as much as you thought, so you have to contract. So you have to start terminating people. Terminating people means to, as an organization, you are letting talent go, talent that you have invested in to develop. So when you look at recessions over the years, and I have gone through 6 of them, I can tell you that with very little exception, contraction of businesses are going to be between 1% to 25%. That you will be contracting your business to be able to weather the storm of a recession or a downturn. With that in mind, I always advise not to staff or not to operate your business at more than 80% capacity, 75 to 80% capacity. And therefore, the balance is outsourced. Because if the downturn arrives, you just stop outsourcing and you have protected your business, and you have protected your talent, and you have protected your investment. And that's really why banks ask about it. They ask to see how you're going to be protecting the investment that you have made in your people, in your equipment, and in your factories. On the operations side, really it's demonstrating how you're going to be operating. How you're going to be operating, and the operation really have 2 aspects, an infrastructure aspect and an equipment aspect. So on the infrastructure, do you own the building in which you are or you are renting? And all of those questions, and depending on how you develop it, is to try to understand how flexible and how variable your expenses might be. The optimal company will operate with 100% of variable expense, but it doesn't exist yet. So, what you're trying to aim is to have as much variable as you can in order to operate, because therefore you can react. If it's variable, it can contract very easily. So if you are renting 2,500 square feet of an office and you have a 5-year contract, it's not very flexible unless you have a clause that you can maybe sublease. And in a contraction, you may not find the people that are prepared to sub lease. So you have to start thinking about that part when you do that. When you look at equipment as an example, I had always a tendency to ask my vendor to finance the equipment instead of me having to use my capital or going out looking for loans to finance my equipment. So I always try to work with somebody else's money. That's has always been my goal.
How will the vendor will finance your piece of equipment?
The very same way that today you want to buy a car, you go to the car dealership and you say, I like your car, but I want it financed over 5 years. And they say, yes ma'am, here's your car, here's your keys. Sign the paper here and pay $600 a month. Thank you, there you go. It's their problem, and they know that in order to move their products, they have to have back agreements with financial institutions and all that. So let them do the work that you should do if you want to finance it yourself. The implementation plan is really demonstrating to investors or to yourself, it's really the roadmap. It's really putting the milestones, achievable milestones, to demonstrate progress. So it doesn't show that you have an idea and you are running a business and what comes in. That demonstrates that you have thought it in a structured manner and that you have an implementation plan. This implementation plan has to be as achievable as possible because you might be called to task on it. So if I provide this to a bank and the bank gives me a loan, I may get a call from my account manager that says, Rony, by the way, by the end of October, you told me that you were hiring a person and you were buying this machine. Has it happened? I better have an answer. So make sure that you do a realistic implementation plan. So tasks and deadlines are clearly defined, and it's showing you the progress that you're going to be making. So now you're ready for your executive summary. So the executive summary is really a description of the market in which you operate, the target market you're going after, your product and services that you're going to offer, your value proposition, why they will buy, how much you have invested, and how much you're looking for. The financial section is, even though it's important, is the easiest one. It has, in my opinion, 4 components to it. One is the assumptions, financial assumptions, assumptions in terms of how many customers you may get, how many new customers you may get, how much recurring revenue you may get, how many digits or widgets you're going to be selling, or how many consulting agreements you're going to be entering into. And then is a projected balance sheet for 2 years, projected income statement for 2 years, and for 12 periods, the cash flow. So this way, any investor can look at that and say, I understand where my money is supposed to go to and where it's going to be needed for.
Why is it for 2 years if one would assume a business may lose money for 3 years? Should you do it?
Because not all businesses lose for 3 years, and bankers will probably not be very excited about investing or lending you money if you're showing losses. So you try to show that you will be able to service the debt.
Okay, fine. So this is more directed towards a bank loan, business plan. Okay.
Yeah. Well, directed to you too. You want to know when you're going to make money.
Right, banks wants to see the assumptions in which form? Like, we have to present some facts, like from the market, or?
No, it's a list.
Okay.
My assumption for year 1 is I'm going to get 5 clients. My assumption for year 2, I'm going to get 10 clients.
Do they want to see how I'm going to get 5 clients, like my foundation?
Well, you described it in the business plan.
Okay.
These assumptions are substantiated by your business plan.
So like one spreadsheet, that's enough for them? Okay, thanks.
But earlier you stated sometimes businesses can expect to lose money for 3 years.
Yes,
But if you're going to a bank, you should be informing the bank that you won't lose money at all, and you can service the debt in the first year.
No. Some businesses are expected to lose money. Banks may not be the lender of these kind of businesses.
That makes sense.
So in my case, for instance, in the technology business where I was in development for 2 years, I was losing money for 2 years. The banks didn't touch me. I had to go to outside, family, friends, angel investors, with terms where I said, in 3 years, I'm going to buy you back, and here's the amount of money I'm going to pay you. Because I expected them. I expected to be profitable by then, but I didn't want them to dictate to me how to run my business. So
I didn't realize you could do that. So you can say, so your exit strategy could actually be that the company pays out, buys out the
an
shares.
agreed formula.
Okay.
As I usually say, my wife doesn't like when I bring that example. I said, you better have your divorce paper in your back pocket when you're walking down the aisle for your wedding. Because that's the best, because that's the best time. Everybody's happy. Everybody will agree on everything. The worst time to agree is when there is a difficulty or there is a challenge. So if I don't do that, and in 3 years I'm profitable, now I'm going to my angel investor and say, by the way, remember, you invested $100,000, here's $110,000 back. He says, are you kidding? Yeah, problem. I'm staying for a long time. I want $300,000. So that's basically the financial. So here's what lenders look for. They want to look at experience. They want to know that they are not giving money to people who are not going to repay it. They want to know which industry you're in and make sure that, and the reason why they're looking at the industry is because they keep statistics on successes and failures of the different industries. Just to give you an example, over 80% of first year businesses fail. An additional 10% fail between year 2 and 5. Only 5% survive 5 years. So that's the reason why bankers don't want to touch companies for at least 2 years. Because they say at least the filtering has occurred. So knowing that, if you look now at more statistics and you say, which are the businesses that are failing the most? Well, 90% of restaurants, as an example, closing within 2 years. So if I have to be an investor, I will probably not invest in a restaurant. Because I have to be really good to find the needle in the haystack of the one that's going to succeed. So that's really what they're looking for. So they're looking at the industry and they want the track record and they want to make sure that you can pay them back. That's it. That I already told you. The love brain and the tough brain. Most companies will get out at the end. Either the managers are going to buy the company if you want to sell it, you're going to go public, you're going to merge, or you're going to sell.